You know something? It's really easy to see the potential that exists in trading. People look at it and go, wow, look at the potential that sits here. Yet, there's this gap that exists between the reality of that potential and the promise of that potential. And the question that we want to get into here today is, how do we tap into that potential? How do we begin to turn it around so that we can actually begin to achieve that? So the first thing is just a small amount of housekeeping, is that I hold my questions till the end. And so hold your questions. You can write your questions in, but the thing is, I will attend to them at the end. So from there, let's start. Let's start. And we start here. Is we start asking, we have to ask the question, how do you master the mind that trades? You know, you have all this potential, and you have all these cool tools. You have the ability to trade, you have platforms, you have methodologies, but ultimately, often what's forgotten is the space between your ears. Because ultimately, trading success is about platform, it's about methodology, and it's about trader psychology. What we want to do is we want to take up and start looking at what part of the trading mind actually stops us from achieving the success that we know is possible. So ultimately, it's about changing the potential that's already there. The potential for you to become a successful trader is there if only the mindset could be changed. Ultimately, we're not talking about secret knowledge. I often hear from people who think there's some secret knowledge, or some download, if some little secret knowledge they had, if they knew it, it would change everything. That's not the obstacle to change, friends. The obstacle is pretty right here. It's right here in this graphic, because ultimately, you are organized from a long history to ensure survival. We start from ancestors many, many years ago, to our caveman ancestors, where living was dangerous. And we had to have lightning sharp reflexes to survive that environment. Later, we came along and finally we sit in front of these computers. But ultimately, what lurks in every person's brain are the survival instincts that we knew from many, many years ago. And it is these survival instincts that are creating the kind of haywire situation that occurs when you know that you know how to trade, but the problem is that you can't trade when you need to trade. And how does that happen? Well, what you're ultimately going to have to do is you're going to have to change the glitch about how your brain responds to uncertainty and what your ideas about success are. Okay, your brain has one idea, trading requires another. Ultimately, what you're going to discover is that uncertainty triggers a sense of threat in the brain and the body. Okay? Now, this is like a threat to safety. Okay? It's not in the markets to the brain, to your caveman brain. It's in the environment. It's a saber-tooth tiger right there. It's not the potential loss of mere money. Ultimately, it was a highly successful brain that you brought to trading that served you well, and that same brain now is going to become your biggest liability. Because ultimately, what happens is uncertainty triggers vulnerability, okay? That vulnerability is interpreted by the body as threat, and that threat activates your survival instincts for short-term preservation. Logic will never work. You're not a rational being with some emotion. What you are is an emotional being with a capacity toward logic. And what we want to learn how to do, okay, we want to learn how to find out how does the brain disable the thinking that we have? And all of a sudden I'm in this reactive mode when I come to trading. And what we begin to recognize is the brain is perceiving threat, okay, but from a very primitive position. and then it just takes over the mind. And ultimately, what it does for you is it creates an anxious or impulsive anticipation of the future. When you experience fear of pulling the trigger, basically what you're doing is you're seeing the caveman survival brain just in action. When you see that you jump out of a trade after you know that, you know something, I had the thing, I knew where it was supposed to be going, but you jump out with a little bit of profit. You are seeing a very successful survival solution to a problem, and the brain looks at it and says, look, success. To you, you look at it and go, man, I just left so much money on the table. I didn't even get into the train. The thing is to the emotional brain, that is seen as success. And the way you experience it is this powerful. And have you ever experienced what's happening to this guy? Have you ever just been sitting there and you know what to do? You know that you're supposed to trade your plan. Then you get in there and you want to do that, but you don't trade your plan. Somehow that gets hijacked. You plan that trade, but then you don't trade the plan. It's hijacked. And this happens all the time. You don't see it coming. And when it's over, you're baffled by your behavior. Ultimately, most traders stay stuck here because they're too embarrassed to acknowledge that we're not in control. But the truth is that the instinctual forces are so powerful, they lock up the capacity of your potential. And friends, the fight-flight response, whether or not it's freezing, whether or not it's chasing trades, whether or not it's revenge trading, that's just simply the caveman's brain responding to perceive threat. It believes it's biological when you know it's just psychological, but that rational you is wiped out. And if you want to see this, if you want to see the glitch in the brain that you're going to have to solve in order to move from where you are in trading to where you want to be, this is the glitch right here. Ultimately, what happens in this diagram is you are looking at information coming into the brain, and it's right there with the thalamus, and the thalamus is sitting there and it's deciding based on past experience whether or not this is an emergency and needs to take the low road to the amygdala, fast reaction, lightning responses to the environmental changes, or it can take the high road, much slower, into the processing centers, the brain where logic is. And so there, if it could only go to the thinking brain, both emotion and logic can work together, and what you have is a great trading mind. Unfortunately, that's not what you were given. You're given this low road that the moment the thalamus sees threat, and remember, it's seeing threat all the time. It's seeing uncertainty all the time. It's already on high alert status. It's just waiting to jump to the low road. And that's what the problem is. This is the glitch that you're going to have to solve in order for you to become a good trader. This is all happening on an instinctual level. And if you take a look at this image right here, to the caveman brain, every time you force it into uncertainty and capital at risk, what you're doing is you're forcing this image into the caveman's brain. Freezing before action stops you from doing something stupid is an emotional brain success. It will lock that behavior in and make it automatic. Okay? Getting a revenge trade, it's the same thing. You take a loss and you want to get them back. Ultimately, now you're chasing the bear. That's not the thing to do. That's the emotional hijacking. So what we're really looking to do, we've got to get past this survival instincts of the emotional brain first, okay? What do you have to do to get past the caveman survival brain? The first thing that you're going to have to do, and by the way, which is not done in trading and is not taught in trading, the very first thing is you have to learn to regulate the fight-flight response to uncertainty. Before you do that, there's this gigantic gap between you and being a consistently profitable trader. So emotional regulation first. And ultimately, what we want to do, this is where it gets really interesting, because emotions are biological. They're not psychological. As a matter of fact, all emotions will have both a breathing signature and a tension signature in your muscles. Ultimately, by learning, and this was your breath and tension control and emotional regulation, what you learn to do is you actually learn to calm the excitatory process of the brain down so that the emotion may trigger. You know, the moment that you hit uncertainty, an emotion is going to trigger. But what we're doing is, when we hit that uncertainty, when we know how to regulate the emotion does not grow and hit the threshold of fear to fight, flight, or as an anger or aggression response. You're keeping the emotional quota low. With high emotion, again, you lose the brain function. You use the thinking function. So this is what breathing and relaxation can do if you learn how to use it to control the intensity of the emotion so that it doesn't sweep you away. So ultimately, let's just say we've got our emotions regulated. You're still going to need to find a tool to find your hidden potential. And ultimately, this is from Krishnamurti. The highest form of emotional intelligence is to observe yourself without judgment. Yet at the same time, most people really don't change because they are scared, they're embarrassed that they're going to be judged as less than powerful, less than adequate, and they don't want anybody to see that the truth is they really feel uncertainty and they're not large and in charge. Ultimately, mindfulness is the innate tool that allows you to step back out of thought and observe the mind without judgment. And what you discover there is that you and your thoughts are not the same. What you discover, you and your beliefs are not the same. And what you also discover is that the organization of the mind that you call yourself is simply but one potential organization of a mind. In this image, what you're looking at is a person recognizing, oh my God, there's lots of different parts of me. I need to learn how to integrate them differently than the way they have been integrated. I don't need a brain organized to survive. I need a brain and mind organized to manage uncertainty. And what you're doing is you're saying, okay, oh my gosh, through mindfulness, what I began to realize is that the brain that I brought to trading is but one potential organization of a self, of a potential self, and that it can be reorganized. Yes. And there is a need for that. Everybody ultimately needs to reorganize the mind they bring to trading. And this is a quote from Ernest Hemingway. What I want you to do is hear this. Understand this before the quote. The historical organization that you brought to trading, as good as it may have been, is built around instinctual survival reactivity that is completely inadequate for the task of managing uncertainty and risk. And listen to this, what Ernest Hemingway said. There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. Oh, my, what would they think? True nobility is being superior to your former self. And friends, in trading, what you're going to have to learn to do is you're going to have to recognize that yourself, the self you bring to trading, is going to need to evolve. It's going to need to evolve from being an instinctual, having instinctual instincts that allow you to avoid death in its thought, to an empowered mind that looks at uncertainty as something to be managed and is done with concern rather than fear. So here we are. What we need to do is to build a mindset rooted in emotions that can in fact manage uncertainty and risk efficiently. Ultimately, what you discover is this, is that, you never have freedom from emotion. How many times do you try to stuff your emotions, to force your will on emotions, and to keep them down? You can't do that. You are an emotional being, and the more you do that, awakens the 800-pound gorilla of an emotional caveman brain in you. But what you can do is you have freedom of emotion. You can actually learn to choose what emotions show up at the triggering of emotion when you're engaging uncertainty. Instead of fear or aggression showing up as a way to respond to the low road, you can train the mind and have it respond to uncertainty by generating curiosity and concern. And you need to be concerned. You need to be there. So ultimately what happens is we have a mind that can be reshaped. It can be rebooted. And that is the trick, that's the glitch that you're going to have to learn how to do, to take all that knowledge, all that stuff you've learned, and to be able to apply it in the real world of uncertainty of trading. That's the big deal, friends. So ultimately, what we're talking about here, within you, not only is there fear and aggression as responses and anger and logic, what there is also emotional programs of discipline, of courage, of self-soothing and impartiality. They already exist within you. The real question is, do you have the wherewithal, do you have the desire to reorganize the way the emotions have organized a self into a new brain that generates a new mind when engaging? My promise to you, as you build, and these are emotional programs, friends. These are not things, these are actual programs that you can learn to turn on and off. That's what we teach. What we teach first is emotional intelligence, understanding yourself emotionally very differently than you do. The second thing is emotional regulation. You have to regulate the emotion to get a chance. The third thing is mindfulness. But then you have to start saying, I need to be able to apply that mindfulness. I need to start reorganizing the brain, the emotions that give rise to the mind that engages the moment of uncertainty. Friends, your job is to learn how to awaken these programs. And that's also what we teach. We teach you how to do that. Not that you should do that. Everybody knows you need to have a disciplined mind. The question is, how do you create a disciplined mind? A mind built on the foundation of the emotional program of discipline. That's what we teach. Again, what we do is we teach freedom of emotion rather than freedom from emotions. We recognize that you're an emotional being. We also recognize that you can learn the capacity to retool those emotions to create a very different emotional response to uncertainty than the one you have now. The challenges of embracing uncertainty and risk are very real. That's real capital you're risking. However, you can choose what emotions create the mind that engages the uncertainty. You don't do that by controlling outcome, which is what the brain wants to do. You do that by controlling what you can control. The mind you bring to performance. The mind that is created by the emotions that you learn to design mind with. Friends, that's where the magic's at. So ultimately, you're first going to have to disrupt the old survival circuit to free yourself from the old patterns of dealing with uncertainty. And the truth is, my friends, is very few people are willing to do that. They are usually their self-image is so wrapped up in their idea of being in control, being a winner, and for God's sake, not being a loser, that they cannot imagine reorganizing themselves and disrupting the old survival patterns. They want to hide. And a lot of it is just being embarrassed because, oh my God, that doesn't fit my self-image. My promise to you is there's a huge difference between being right, okay, and being effective. There are very, very few successful traders who are right. The successful traders are the ones who are effective. They know that being right or wrong is not in their control. Their effectiveness, the mind they bring into the moment of performance, is that what they control. And friends, that, my friends, is the difference maker. If you've been trading for 2 or 3 years, you recognize you can have all the knowledge in the world, but unless you can apply it in real time, it's not there. It's kind of like what Bruce Lee said, to understand your fear is the beginning of really seeing. And what you will have to learn up doing is you will have to master that fear. And you need to turn that fear into concern, okay? Because in mastering that fear, it's kind of like this image. Do you remember in this movie where Avatar, where you had to go capture your dragon? The problem is the dragon wanted to kill you. But until you mastered your fear, you couldn't master the dragon. Ultimately, it's your dragon that holds you back. To master it is to open the door to a great new potential, okay? You're no longer engaging uncertainty from a position of fear, but from a position of probability. Now, ultimately, just because you acknowledge the potential of fear and you act from the empowered self doesn't mean you're going to win. What it means is that you're going to perform well. And if you perform well, you will be actually utilizing the edge that your methodology gives you, rather than blowing up and not being able to use that edge. Winning and losing really become immaterial to you. You discover that it's literally the performance in the moment that matters. Winning and losing will in fact take care of themselves. And I want you to look at this. If you take a look at a surfer, do you think he can control that wave? No. Do you think he knows or not whether or not he's going to get wiped out, have a good ride, or what? No, he doesn't. What do you think that surfer knows? What he knows is he gets his mind in the right place, and he actually works in concert with that wave, with the energies of that wave, and the likelihood of him getting a good ride is greatly enhanced. If he approaches that wave in fear, or if he thinks he's just going to conquer that wave, the potentiality of that wave winning is there. I want you to see about that winning and losing. And ultimately, most people really want to control outcome. That's part of your caveman survival brain. It also wants to be right. Yet at the same time, in trading, control of outcome is an illusion. Being right is probably one of the easiest ways of being wrong in trading there is. Because ultimately, what you discover very clearly is that ultimately, what you're talking about doing as a mindset like this really takes root. You focus on execution, that's the process. In this case of the serve, and not on the outcome you want to achieve, meanings like forcing a short ball, for example, or not missing. Focus on completely different things. Do you see that? The old mindset wants to win and not lose, but that's impossible to control. And traders try all the time though. Yet the new mindset is focused on the mind that you bring into the moment, which, by the way, you can control. Which would you prefer? Would you try to control something that you cannot control and get blown away willy-nilly, or would you rather control what you can control and have a very good likelihood of success? It's really up to you. So ultimately, in this probability mindset, winning, this thing, I gotta be a winner, I gotta be a winner, it's just simply landing on the right side of probability. There's no big deal. There's no reason to get excited. It's just your methodology showing its edge. It's not about winning by forcing an outcome. What you've done is you've performed well. You didn't give up, and you performed well. That's the big deal, friends. You begin to see winning that way. But even bigger, much bigger, is losing. Practically, if you're an American, if you're a male, you probably know Vince Lombardi. He's the infamous coach who was just a big, huge time winner. But what I want you to understand about traders are outstandingly good losers. Yet our society doesn't want you to be a loser. Look at what Vince has to say. Show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser. Okay? Without having incredibly good loser mentality within you, you never develop the skills to win. This does not come naturally, friends. But if you want to become a profitable trader, losing is an acquired skill. You know, when you take a look at a monthly layout of a trader's performances, what you see in many traders is you see some big losing days where they resisted losing, where they refused to accept, this is not my hypothesis, I'm getting out of the trade with a small loss to trade for another day. No, what you see is give it a little more. Don't let this happen. You see resistance to losing. When you look at really good traders' lines, what you start noticing is their daily losses are very small. Once they get into a trade and it doesn't hit what their hypothesis is saying, they recognize they are no longer executing an edge, they're gambling. And they minimize the loss and move on. They know that they're going to be wrong somewhere between 60 and 40% of the time. They're going to become master losers. And they're also to become master winners, so when they actually have the fortune that something goes their way, they don't immediately jump out. They sit there and go, okay, it's meeting my hypothesis. I'm going to stay the program. So you begin to see that the winner and the loser are flip sides of the same coin. And most traders are going to have to change their understanding of losing so that they can, in fact, win. So from here, what we begin to recognize that it's a whole new ballgame. You have to teach your brain and your mind to rechannel, to retool its potential. We're not saying that the way the brain and the mind have been organized right now is bad. It may have produced enormous success in another field, but the mind that you brought to trading is not going to be the mind that brings success in trading. You're going to have to transform that mind into a totally different machine, a different set of possibility potentialities. It's a new ballgame. You have to teach it to engage uncertainty because it does not have control of outcome or being right. That's what you have to let go of. If you're not willing to do that, you really ought to get out of trading and find an aspect in business or something that really helps you and works. So let's take a look at what we've really gone over here, okay? This new way of engaging uncertainty is taught as a process by us. Okay, the very first thing that happens is you learn a lot about emotions, mastery over cognition. You begin to understand that, you know something, you are a user of emotions to create mind. You're not someone who's trying to push emotions away. But as you learn to use emotional intelligence, the first task is emotional regulation. You have to be able to control the intensity of the emotion or you're going to get wiped out anyway. You have to do that. The third thing that's going to happen in stock is mindfulness. You're going to have to be able to separate yourself from your thoughts and your beliefs and recognize they are not me. As a matter of fact, I don't have thoughts and beliefs. My thoughts and beliefs have me. I need to change that. I need to start redirecting it. And the fourth thing that happens is using that mindfulness, you discover the historical organization of self. That's the one that's become problematic in your trading. You discover the core of your fear. You discover this thing called the internal critic, that part that judges you, that part that tempts you. Then, with the mindfulness, you begin to awaken the empowered self within you, those emotional programs of discipline, of courage, of self-soothing, and impartiality. You're teaching them to show up when you engage uncertainty rather than fight flight. It's a teachable process, friends. It's a teachable process. The sixth thing is you're going to have to deal with the discomfort and the internal struggle. There's always going to be ambiguity. There's always going to be self-doubt. The thing, though, is what mind are you bringing there? What mind are you bringing into that moment? You're making the best decision you can in terms of probability, not of being right. Big difference, friends. Big difference. The next thing is you develop an intentionality to your mind. You come to a moment of, as you go through this process, you get this training done, you recognize that, oh my God, I can actually build a process that gets my mind into a zone that can trade well. If I'm not in that zone, I don't trade. And I learned to be able to see the difference between my mind in the zone and my mind not. And the last thing is vigilance. You realize you have to stay with this. So that's what we teach, and we teach it as a process. And my question to you is this: are you ready to claim the potential living within you? Or are you going to stay stuck in the patterns that you're already in? It takes effort. It takes a real commitment to say, I need to change. Most squander their capital and their time long before they realize that trading is really about the mindset. But I'm asking you, why not be the exception? And if you do come to the moment where you realize, well, how do I become the change? Well, it just so happens, if you don't know anything about me, go to the website and get our free ebook first. That's the first thing to do. Just start learning about me. However, if you start going through my other books, a lot of the articles, a lot of the videos, and you go, oh my God, how do I go about trading? Well, we have a group course that's starting January 18th, okay? And right now, if you go ahead and sign up, so you'll be ready for this course by the 14th, you're gonna get a free gift as an early sign up. And it's a $200 gift. It's an emotional regulation training workshop that I did that is going to help you prepare for being in this course. And it's really fast action. People who don't start the course until the day of the course, they're already 2 weeks behind. And I'm asking you to show up sooner. For more information, just simply go to the website, look up that, and learn about it. We also have an individual course that's enormously comprehensive and personal, and it's built for the person who says, you know something, I want individual mentorship, because it comes with 10 consults with me. What we're doing is, if you're going, you know something, I am really interested in this, but I want to talk and find out which is best for me. Ask for a free consult. You go to the website, you hit contact us, and Dolores will organize a time that suits both you and I, and we get there. But the major thing right now is that when you start this and you start going, wow, I like what this guy's saying, get the free ebook. Start the process, go to the website and recognize there's a lot of free material there for you to learn from. So you know something? I really hope you have a great year. And I really hope that you say, you know something, it's time for me to take my mindset to a different level so that it can really push the method edge that I have.